Potomac Bead Company, and today I am going to show you a long necklace with a nice herringbone design, adding in a bunch of different colors, and I'm calling this the Paintbrush Necklace. So it looks to me kind of like the tips of a paintbrush, and you have all different colors that you can use. It's a good way to use up some beads if you have a bunch of tubes that you have just a little bit left of beads. This is a great way to do it, a great design, and you can really play around with this paintbrush necklace. I think it lends itself more to a long necklace, but you could do it short. You can also do it with a number of different size of beads, which I'll go over as we go through the pattern and how you actually create the video. If you need any of the materials to do this paintbrush necklace, here in the video, if you kind of move your mouse over the corner here, a little eye will pop up or the eye will be there. That's information from us as the video manufacturer, and we'll give you links to some of the different products online. Like I said, the cool thing about the paintbrush necklace that I'm working with here is you really can use any beads for it. I'm going to be using 11/0 seed beads and 8/0 seed beads. It's going to make the work go quickly because I'm using a bigger size, but I would also challenge you, if you want to, you could do it with 11/0s or 11/0 delicas and then 15/0 seed beads as your color in the middle. You can kind of think outside the box and think different colors, or you can even go with the same color as well. I have tons of different colors of 11s in my box, so I decided to go with a multicolored necklace and have fun with that. So to do the paintbrush necklace, like I said, if you want to kind of follow along and you want it to go quickly, we're going to be using 8/0 seed beads. I have 8/0 seed beads here, and you're going to need approximately 20 to 28 grams of seed beads, which 2 tubes will get you that if you're purchasing us from them, or from us rather. You could do it in colors, you can do it in a variety. I'm sticking here with that Duracoat galvanized gold color, just so that way I can use any color and it kind of doesn't pull from it. You could also use silver, you can use copper, or you could actually do the herringbone with a color and change it up and do different colors in there as well too. So the herringbone base itself, again, you're going to need about 20 to 28 grams of your 8/0 seed beads. In addition to the 8/0 seed beads, which are going to be the gold ones that are the whole way around our little paintbrush tips there, you're going to be using 11/0 seed beads. The 11/0 seed beads, it's really up to you kind of what you want to do and how many you want to actually make and which color. Did you want to do the whole thing in the same color? So that's going to determine how many colors of 11/0 seed beads you want to work with, as well as how much of each color you need. Like I said, I liked the idea of the paintbrush that you can use all different colors and all different styles, and kind of have that as the artist's palette for really mixing colors and kind of having fun with it. Also, a lot of you guys will have 11/0 stock on hand, so that way this is a fun one that you shouldn't need to get too much materials in order to have fun and create with me. So I have a lot of the Duracoat opaque colors because I have a Duracoat opaque kit here that has all the different colors in it, and then some silver lined and just some different beads as well, again just pulling out from the 11/0s. For the 11/0 seed beads, for each little piece here, it is going to be 14 beads here, and you're doing that 4 times. So you're going to get 14 times 4 if you want to do all different colors. That's kind of up to you. So 56 will get you one of your colors of your 11/0. In addition to the 8/0 and the 11/0, you're also going to want some thread and a needle. I have a size 10 here beading needle, Potomac beading needle, that I'll be working with and kind of sewing along. You're going to be using a lot of beading thread because it's a long project, because it's a long necklace. You could also do this as a bracelet or a bangle as well. I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the green color because it's going to match all of my different kind of color palettes, and you don't see it too much through the opaques as well. So you're going to be using a lot of thread, probably about 25 feet or so of the beading thread is going to get you your whole project. Because you are doing a lot of link sections where you link up the thread, you also want to have a thread zap or a cord cutter or a thread burner handy to burn down the edge of the thread where you connect them, as well as where we connect the necklace, the whole thing together. I also like to have handy with me a needle nose pliers to kind of squish down the edge of the thread, which is going to make it easier to thread your needle. If you do want to do this necklace that it doesn't go over the head and it's not as long, you'll need a clasp and a button to go along with that clasp. You can watch one of my other videos called the Calypso that just kind of came out to learn how to put a clasp on. I'm going to show you basically how to make it a rope style and make it long to just go over your head. So to get started, you're going to pick your first color, whatever you want to use, and we are going to get out some of our 8/0 and our 11/0 seed beads. So we're going to get started with our paintbrush bracelet, and it is based on herringbone stitch. It's 2 rows of tubular herringbone with us adding seed beads in between every little section that we work with. So the start of it is just going to be the start basically of how you start tubular herringbone. When we get to the end then, and you can see I've been working on this necklace and I still have further to go. So I figured I'd start the video, show you guys how to do it, and then keep going and come back and show you how to end it. So I'm not having to sit here for a couple hours and do it for you guys. So I have on a stop bead onto my thread. Normally I would suggest that you start with about 5 feet of beading thread. I just have a little bit here because I'm actually going to go on then and show you guys how you progress and how you continue to add and add and add your little paintbrush colors onto your necklace. So to show you how to get started and transition from that first color to the second color, again, we are going to be starting with a tubular herringbone stitch. If you're not sure how to do herringbone, you may want to watch a herringbone video first before you get into this, but if not, just kind of pay attention and come along with us. So I have on 4 beads. I'm going to let those drop down next to a stop bead. The stop bead is a bead that's not in my project, but that I will eventually take off. The thread is through the stop bead 2 times, going away from a small 3-inch tail. The 4 8/0 seed beads go on, and I'm going to take my thread and needle back through the first 3 from the stop bead side up towards the end. When I do that, it's going to pull it into a little circle or diamond there. Naturally then, the beads are going to sit. You see between the beads where I have the thread and the 4th bead in line, it kind of sits that they sit open on one another. And you can see the thread, bridging from one bead to the other. We're then going to pick up another 2 8/0 seed beads and sew down that 4th bead in line. Herringbone is based on groups of 2, and it gets you kind of looking like they're sitting in a V. From there, we're going to progress to the opposite side of the herringbone stitch. To do so, our thread is coming out of bead number 4 in our line, and we're going to go back through bead number 1. Coming out bead number 1, we're going to repeat what we did over here, adding 2 of our seed beads, because in herringbone you always do them in a group of 2. And we're going to sew down bead number 2 from our original baseline. That's going to put our second row of our herringbone on. So you can see the herringbone starting to kind of go this way and this way. What we're going to do now is actually step up for our 3rd row. We're also at that same time, I want you guys to kind of separate it out a little bit and kind of pinch those 2 rows together so that your needles kind of off to the side and your seed beads are sitting, so beads number 1 and 2 sit across from beads number 3 and 4. Then the next 4 beads that you added will sit right next to one another. The needle and thread are going to go up through the 3rd bead in line as well as that 1st bead on the 2nd row of the herringbone. I'll lay it out so you can kind of see where it is. So the needle and thread were in here between the beads. I took it up 2 rows. And then I'm going to add 2 more beads to this side of the herringbone and sew down 1 bead on the other side. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to get my first side of my 3rd row of the herringbone. Again, I kind of want to pinch those beads together, make sure they're sitting. The thread and needle now are going to switch over to the opposite side, so I'll lay it out so you can see, and it's going to go up the next bead on the opposite side. And I'll show you the thread pass so that we can see it. So here's my stop bead, And when you fold your beads up and fold them up towards one another, you can see this thread is coming out through one of the baselines. And then I'm going to pull the thread up so that it's coming out the other side of my herringbone stitch. From there, 2 more beads go on. If I was teaching just herringbone, I would be doing this in different colors so you guys can keep track of kind of the rows that you have. But because we are doing it in this necklace, we're going on with all the same color. From there, I have my 3 sides of my my 3 rows of my herringbone going up on each side. Every time I add 4 beads, I'm then going to step up, it's called, going through 2 beads in the previous herringbone, on the previous herringbone side. That's going to pull them together and start to get them to sit next to one another. When you know to go up 2 beads is always when you're on the side opposite of your stop bead. Now I'm going to start my 4th row. So my 4th row starts with 2 seed beads on, and I go down through the other bead on this side from the 3rd row. The thread and needle then is coming out that 3rd row after you add the 4th, and I'm going to spin in my hand over to the 3rd row on the opposite side of the herringbone. On this side, add in 2 beads and sew down the opposite bead on that 3rd row on the 2nd side. From there, I'm on the side now where I know that I don't have the stop bead, and it's time to step up because I just added 4 beads. If it helps you, what you can actually do is take your 8 seed beads and put them in piles of 4 so you know exactly when you need to do your step up. So put them out in a pile of 4, then you'll know it's time to do your step ups and you won't kind of get lost. Herringbone is naturally going to sit in a V or look like it's separated. It's not till you're on to the next row that you can see the 3 rows back are connected. So we're starting row 5, the 3 rows are connected. The 4th row that we just did is kind of hanging out there disconnected. We're going to use that to our advantage, and we're actually going to make that even more expanded and broader basically by adding in our little paintbrush colors. So at this point here, you can continue on with the herringbone if you need a little practice, but I'm going to show you guys how to add some color in our paintbrush style. So grab out a couple of your 11-0 beads, and we're going to get ready to actually start embellishing and adding the seed beads between. So to add my seed beads between, I'm coming up to start my 5th row of my herringbone stitch. So I have my 4 rows. Here's one side, and then there's the other side. The stop bead kind of sits in between the rows. So as I'm ready to start my 5th row of my herringbone, I'm going to add an 11-0 seed bead between my 8-0 seed beads in that 5th row of herringbone. Come down the 2nd bead on this side, spin it in your hand, and go up the 4th row through the 1st bead on the other side. Once you're out there, go ahead and add your next 8-0 and 11 and 8 and complete that herringbone stitch. From there, I knew that I added my 4 8-0 seed beads with an 11-0 between each. So I know that it's time to step up and go through 2 beads rather than just 1. There I have my first set of beads on. Rather than just putting beads on both sides, I'm actually going to put beads too here where it starts the link. So I am going to be adding beads now, and we're going to add 1 less seed bead than what we add between our 8-0s. To start row number 6 of our herringbone, we're going to pick up an 8-0 and 2 11-0s and an 8-0 seed bead. From there, kind of ignore the fact that the 11's even there. It'll kind of push out to the side. Go down through the 8, just like you were continuing with your normal herringbone stitch. From there, normally we would just go right over and link over to the opposite side of the herringbone stitch. Instead, pick up one 11/0 seed bead before sewing to add the 6th row on the opposite side. Come over back to the herringbone, add 2 seed beads between the 8s, sew down and add that row of herringbone. And then as you get ready to sew through your 2 beads to step up, add one 11/0 onto your needle and step up through your 2. So you're always going to be adding on the bridge threads, or the threads that kind of are on the side of the herringbone here, connecting the 2. You're always adding 1 less than what you're adding actually in the herringbone stitch itself. So to add our next grouping of herringbone, we're coming out the top here. You're going to add 3 seed beads because we're increasing our count of our seed beads that sit between our 11/0s. 3 seed beads get added. Sew down the herringbone. As I bridge the gap from one side of my herringbone to the other side of the herringbone, I'm going to add 2 11/0 seed beads and then come over to do my next row of my herringbone stitch. That's going to put 2 seed beads there, and you can see kind of the look and the pattern that's going on. On the opposite side then, we're ready to do our herringbone again. Again, we already did 3 seed beads on that first side. We're doing 3 seed beads on the second side here as well. Always just adding in 4 8/0s. When I come over here to link from one side of the herringbone to the other side of the herringbone, I'm going to add 2 11/0 seed beads and then sew up 2 8s as I step up to the next row. Coming up to the next row then, we're increasing to a number of 4. So 4 11/0s will sit between our 8/0 seed beads. From there, continue the herringbone stitch, which will put 4 seed beads on the side. Between the 2 rows of herringbone, or the 2 sides of herringbone, we're now going to put 3 seed beads. And sew up 1 bead, spinning it in my hands. I'm going to add my last 2 8/0s with my 4 seed beads between. So down the herringbone, give a kind of tight tug to make sure that it's pulling that nice and tight. And then as I link over, add 3 11s and sew up 2 beads to start the next row of the herringbone stitch. So between the herringbone rows, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. On the links, linking the sides of the herringbone, I only have 3. As I continue now with the herringbone sides, which are the sides which have the 8/0s on them, I'm going to downgrade from 4 seed beads down to 3, then 2, then 1. So down through the herringbone stitch as you downgrade. As you downgrade too, you kind of want to push that center bead grouping of 4 out, and that'll create that little puffing effect. Oops, I got linked onto a bead. As you're coming out that herringbone stitch then, here along the side, we did 3 for our herringbone. We're going to also build up to 4. So we build up to 4 along the sides of the herringbone, and we build up to 4 along these bridge threads linking the 2 sides of the herringbone. As we come back then to do our next set of our herringbone, we're downgrading because we already have 4 seed beads, so we know that we need 3 between our 8/0s. Push that out just a tiny little bit and pull. Here along the side, if you forget your count, we're going up to 4 before we start to degress. And I'm stepping up because I'm going to do my next row of my herringbone. So there I have almost like a little bead cap, so there's an idea for you as well. Here then, I'm going down to 2 in the herringbone stitch. Along the sides, I have 4. So I pour out a couple more seed beads here. I have my 4 there, so I know that along the sides, along those bridge threads connecting the 2 herringbones, I'm starting to decrease as well, and I have those 3. To finish up the herringbone on this row, this is my row of 2, so I have an 8-0 with 2 seed beads between them, and sewing down. I'm just going to give kind of a nice tight pull, making sure that all my thread is nice and tightly pulled in. From here, I'm back to my side, adding 3 seed beads and sewing up 2 8-0s. As I do so, then I'm coming around to the top of my herringbone to do my next row. My last row added in 2 of my beads. Oh, and I got an extra 8-0 on there, so I'll have to go back and take that off. But the next one added in 2, so the next one that I do will add in 1. I'm going to go ahead and take this off because, like I said, I added in an extra 8-0 by accident, and then we will go ahead and I'll show you guys how to do 1. So I'm back here to my section where I'm getting ready to start my next row of my herringbone, and the next row of the herringbone requires 1 seed bead between the 8-0s. Linking then from one side of the herringbone to the other, I'm downgrading along those bridge threads, and I'm going to use 2 11-0 seed beads. Over to the next size. On this next side, continue with the herringbone, which is just 1 seed bead between, sewing down. Bridge threads then, you get 2 seed beads on, and sew up 2 to start my next row. The next row of herringbone, I can't go any lower other than completely skipping out on the actual center 11-0. So that's what we're going to do, and just go back to adding just 2 of our 8-0s with no 11-0s in between. So you can see you kind of get that diamond shape. Then linking from one side of the herringbone to the other requires 1 seed bead and creating the link. From here then, on the second side of the herringbone, again, no seed bead gets added, and it's just the 8-0s. Linking on the sides to finish up that row, 1 seed bead gets added, and I'm sewing up 2 of my 8-0s. So I'm now finished actually with that look of the kind of paintbrush tip, getting the color in there, because all of my diamonds now have really stopped, that they both have, both the herringbone sides as well as the linking sides have the actual seed beads done. When you spin around, you're going to kind of notice that where you have the herringbone, the seed beads kind of arch up. Where you're doing the linking, the seed beads tend to arch down, so they kind of almost go in a swirl as well. From here, I'm going to do a couple sets of plain herringbone with no seed beads in order to create a bridge to the next color. The length that you do for the herringbone in the middle to separate them out is completely and utterly up to you. Another idea is actually to switch for a couple rows from an 8-0 seed bead to an 11-0 seed bead in the same color. So switching from an 8-0 seed bead to an 11-0 in that galvanized, Duracoat galvanized gold. What I'm going to do now is do 3 more rows of my herringbone where I don't add in any of my seed beads. Along the side, I'm just going right from one side of the herringbone to the other. So this here is the second row that I've established, that I've done that I haven't added any seed beads into the herringbone stitch. I'm going to do a third row, the same thing, adding in the seed beads without doing any of the herringbone stitch. After you finish that third row and step up and connect, we're going to start over with a new color. So from here, after adding 3 rows of herringbone that there's no seed beads between them, we're going to clean up our first color, or you can keep little piles on your mat, it's kind of up to you. I like to clean up my mat, get rid of that first color, pick up another color, and dump some of those beads out. From there, we go back now to the same progression. You're going to pick up an 8 and then 1 seed bead, starting the next row of your herringbone. For this first row here, we don't add any seed beads along the bridge. We just continue with the bridge with the thread exposed. Step up 2 beads and close it up. Now as we start to add 2 beads between the 8-0 and increase, that's where we're going to add our first seed bead, bridging the sides of the seed beads. So I'm going to go in now, add my grouping of 2, sew down, and add 1 in and step up 2 seed beads. From there you'll have your grouping of 2 and then your 1 on the side, and we're going to continue then adding in until we get to 4 and then decreasing, and then as well adding in our seed beads along the edges, going again up to 4 and decreasing as well. After that, we're going to do 3 rows of plain herringbone and continue on with the next color. So here I am prepared with my big long piece here to actually add my next color. So I have done about 16 inches or so of my painted rope here. And the paintbrush rope I'm going to continue on. You can see that purple was the last color that I used. So I'm going to clean up that purple color. And I'm actually going to go back and dump out some of that blue color because I actually haven't used that yet. And this color is a little bit different, a little bit more green. So again, I'm getting ready to make my paintbrush longer and spill my beads everywhere too. I'll pull them down in. And to make my paintbrush longer, I've gone through and I've added my 3 rows of my plain herringbone. And I'll just let you kind of record here for a minute or two while I go in and actually continue to work on it. And as you continue to work on it, again, you go through your first row that you're adding, you add your seed bead, and you can tell by the amount of time that it takes me to pull the thread that I have a lot more thread on my needle. Adding in to start the first bead in between the herringbone rows on the first row of the blue color. When I start the second row of that herringbone stitch and I add in 2 beads between my 8s is when I'm going to go in and start adding beads between the herringbone sides. I spin the project the whole time as I'm working at it, basically spinning it around in a circle to add in those seed beads and to get my correct stitches and kind of work with it rather than keeping it flat. So I'm just going to work on now, adding in my 2 seed beads during the herringbone and then 1 on the bridge. I'm going to work both sides, both the bridge and the herringbone sections, up to 4 seed beads, and then degress the amount of seed beads that I'm holding. So you're going through and adding 1 along the sides and then 2 along the bridge thread. On the actual herringbone side then, I'm going to go ahead and finish up this row, which is my row of 3 seed beads, and come down the opposite side. When I come down the opposite side, I'm going to spin it in my hand back to the first side here. And I've got 2 seed beads going in and then stepping up. So you can see that color starting to take place. I'm going to work with it the whole way now till I get that seed bead. I'm going to move these over here. So I'm going to work with it now until I have those 4 seed beads. And it starts to move quickly. One of the challenge items that I was saying and showing this to a friend, she said, oh, I'd love to do that in delicas with some 15-0s. I think that would be spectacular. So if you guys get a chance to make it in some 15-0s and some 11-0s, I think it would look awesome, and you should definitely do it. So some delicas and then some 15-0s will make it work. As I get to the top now, I have my sets of 4 seed beads in on the herringbone row, and now I'm going to start to degrass using 3 seed beads on the herringbone sides between the 8-0s. From there, along the bridge thread, I haven't gotten to 4 yet, so I need to get to 4. So this last bridge thread side here is going to be 4 seed beads and sew up. After the number 4, after I get to that magic number 4, then I'm going to start decreasing the amount of seed beads along the side as well. So as you build up the project, the amount of seed beads along the bridge thread is 1 less. As you decrease, the amount of seed beads along the bridge thread is actually 1 more. I'm stepping up here. And now that I have 4 seed beads on the bridge threads, I'm going to, or the connector thread, I'm going to start going down to 3. And on the actual herringbone, I'm down to 2 already. And then again, remember what we want to do is we are going to do 3 rows then of the herringbone stitch where we don't have any of the 11-0 seed beads. We're just solely using the 8-0 seed beads. And again, 3 rows is just what I chose to do. You don't need to follow that. It's kind of up to you how many rows of the plain herringbone you want to do. Also, like I said, it would look nice. Another challenge for you guys, if you're doing this fun herringbone paintbrush rope, you can go in and change it from 11-0 or from 8-0s down to 11-0s, which will cinch it in a little bit more and make those paintbrush colors kind of stand out. Here now I have the point where I am at. You can see I use my lid to pour out because I don't want too many, because you don't use that many on the project. I'm to the point on the herringbone where I'm down to 1 seed bead. Going in then on the bridge, I'm at 2. Spinning over the herringbone here to the side and twisting it, 1 on this side as well to finish up this row of the herringbone stitch. Give a tight pull, add your 2 11-0s and step up. Now we're going to begin that 3 rows where there's only 8-0 seed beads. So you're going to add 2 seed beads right next to one another and finish up this row. There's your first row where that's the case. I still have 1 more seed bead to add in the bridge thread, but again, that's the bridge thread, that's not the herringbone. So I finish this first row here with my 8-0s and no seed beads in between the 8-0 rows of herringbone. Step up, do 2 more rows of just 8-0 herringbone, and at this point now on the bridge threads also, I'm not adding any seed beads. I'm just going to sew right over to the herringbone stitch to pull these items in. That's my second row. I'm stepping up, pull the thread nice and tight. Now I have 1 more row of my 8-0s to do here before I get ready to start adding in my next color. This is where I was saying to play around with the color and really have fun with it. Having fun creating and designing and playing around. Now that I have my 3 rows of my herringbone stitch in, I'm ready to create my next color. So rather than making you guys sit here and watch me make my paintbrush rope longer, I'm going to do a little bit off screen, making it longer and adding in more of my colors. Once I do that, then I'll come back to you guys, excuse me, and we'll be able to show you how to assemble it and how to singe it all together and create your nice long rope. So I just stepped up a row of herringbone, and one thing I wanted to show you guys as it gets longer is that each color section is about 1 inch. So if you're kind of determining, it's a little bit tiny bit longer than 1 inch, if you're determining how many colors you need to kind of pull out of your 11-0 case, you can think about 1 inch a color. So what I'm going to show you guys now is how to add thread, because inevitably I don't like to work with more than 5 feet of thread at a time. So I have to tie on thread about 4 times during this bracelet or this necklace in order to complete it. To tie the thread on, I have my needle off and I'm coming out one of my rows of my herringbone in the middle of the project, ready to add my next group of my herringbone, my 8/0s, and then my 4 seed beads. I'm going to take my new piece of thread and tie it in a knot around the old piece of thread, just like that. What this allows me to do is move the knot up and down that thread that's still there. So I haven't used the old thread yet. I'm just simply tying around the old thread and not tying with the old thread. I'm going to pull the new thread nice and tight in that knot that I created, push the knot down almost into a bead, and grab the other tail of the thread, the one that's left, and tie into a knot. Right over left, and then left over right. I'll then take my thread burner so my thread doesn't get mixed up in, and take the burner and burn down the thread so there's about 1/4 inch left. That 1/4 inch of thread will remind me exactly where I need to go in then and either glue or burn down further after I completed the project and I'm further along into the design. From here, you're going to pick up your pliers, pinch down on the end of the thread there, and go ahead then and thread the needle back onto the thread. Now I'm just going to continue as if my thread little link wasn't there at all in my pattern, picking up these opaque squash beads and adding them in to the design. So I just wanted to show you guys how to add thread, since you will definitely have to do it while you're working and creating this design. So I'm going through adding a couple more inches to the design because I want it to hang lower on my actual neck. I have about 18 or 19 inches done here, and I'm going to keep going to make my pattern longer, about 24 inches to go around my neck and to hang exactly where I want it to. So I'm continuing on, adding in the colors, and I'm actually starting to repeat some of the colors as well, repeating kind of that peachy coral color and getting more of those colors in on this paintbrush rope. So I just finished up my last color, and I'm going to get ready to add the 2 pieces together, the start and the finish. Again, if you want to put a clasp on it, you can do so as well, but I'm just going to make it one long continuous rope so that way I can stick it over my head. To do so, I'm coming out of my last color of my bead here. So I have that little last paint dip in, and I've gotten to the point here where I'm done putting in the seed beads along the bridge thread, and I've stepped up. I'm going to go back to the starter side here, take off the stop bead, and then also use another needle to try to take apart and take out basically that stop bead, ripping it out one complete row. From there, you can see I have my completed 3 rows of my blank herringbone stitch, and here I have 1. So I know I still need to take it out 1 more row. From here, I'm going to add the 2 sides together. To add the 2 sides together, we're basically stitching the herringbone as if it was completely continuous. I'm going to come to the side that matches where I'm going. So I have my colors here kind of matched up next to one another. My thread is coming out right next to it, And I'm going to sew up through 2 rows of my herringbone stitch, and then down through 2 rows of the herringbone stitch, and add from one side to the other, going through here and sewing down as if those 2 rows of seed beads were stacked on top of one another and linking them between. From there, I'll go back up just 1 row. Last time I did 2. This time I'm going back up 1 row and going in and acting like that is my herringbone stitch. The starter thread is still sitting there, and what I'm going to do is kind of flip over the project to the other side of the herringbone. Bringing the needle then from one side to the other, I'm going to go over like a bridge thread like I normally would and do the same exact thing. Sew up 2 rows of herringbone, move that starter thread out of the way, sew down the 2 rows of herringbone and the one that you're connecting to, and then go back and sew up one row of the herringbone and down 1 row. That's going to make it pretty seamless, and you're not going to be able to see the thread going through. From here then I'm going to take my needle and thread and connect the bridge thread from that one side to the other side through that first little herringbone row there. That brings my threads out right next to one another. Take the thread end off, and then you're simply going to tie the knots together of the thread ends in that square knot fashion. When you tie the square knots together, you are going to tie them off, and then about 3 or 4 times, and then we're going to burn the edges of the thread down. So I'm going to take my thread zap or my thread burner and burn them down just about 1/8 of an inch or so, and then burn them down flush against themselves, creating a stop and making it so you can't see where any of the thread is, and making that a nice continuous chain or a nice continuous loop. So I'm really excited to be able to wear this one. I really like this one. I'm probably going to end up making a couple varieties of it. Again, going with that 15s and the 11s, and then also going from the 8s down to 11s in the middle to kind of singe it up and make those paintbrushes stand out even more. Again, you could do this as a wrap bracelet. I'm just kind of put it on there so you can see the different version of the bracelet, what it would be like, and have fun creating this nice rope. Again, if you need any of the materials, you can go back to the beginning of the little video or to that eye in the corner and kind of press on that. Also below the video, there's always a detail of when the video was created and details from us what it's about. In that, there's also a little down arrow that says show more. You can click on that and it will get you links to different products that we sell online that are used here in the video. Also, you guys are kind of seeing me right now just do my thread burner ends because I haven't done them yet on all the sections where I had to add some of my thread. Also, if you like this project, like other ones like it, like some of the new designs that we've done, you can link or you can subscribe to this YouTube channel rather to get regular updates from us to find out what we've been up to, the designs that we're doing, as well as some new things in the beading world. You can also stay connected with us on Facebook and on Instagram. Also join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. The Beading and Jewelry Making group is a wonderful forum of people that love to make jewelry in all different forms and fashions. They're really helpful to ask examples or ask for help and to play around with asking for opinions and designs also. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching this painted rope necklace, and have fun going to town making a bunch of these and playing around with your colors.